how landlords should behave with tenants.
You do build a relationship with your tenants. I had evictions with a tenant that had this terrible breakup with his girlfriend. He was like an HVAC guy. Told him, pull yourself together. You don't want this on your record. I waited. He caught up on his rent, was never behind. After that, ended up having a wonderful girlfriend who later married, bought this property, but he needed somebody in that moment.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Path of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today's guest is someone who's been making incredible moves in the multifamily space while uplifting the investor community in a truly inspiring way. With over 30 years of experience across corporate, nonprofit, and government sectors, and a real estate journey that began back in 2005, she's now invested in 18 multifamily properties across multiple states, actively building her own portfolio and mentoring others, and known in the real estate world as a podcast queen for a good reason. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me today with you, Alex.
No, it's a pleasure having you here. I heard a lot of good things about your journey, and I've seen you being a guest on other podcasts, so thank you for coming in today. For our listeners who don't know you yet, can you start from the beginning? How did your real estate journey begin back in 2005?
Sure. It started on the single family side, actually. And what happened was my spouse, now of 37 years, he's been my business partner in real estate for 20 years. He came home from this seminar, it's Managing Your Money seminar in Dallas, Texas. And he said, hey, Sharon, we could either be real estate investors or I could be a day trader. And I'm exploring these two options because he wanted multiple streams of income. He's been in the aerospace industry 40 years now, 40 years. And, but it was really, really on his mind. He wanted that advantage. And he said, we could really leverage the skill set that you obtained in your construction family home. I'd never thought of that as a superpower, as a strategic advantage. My brothers and I were just the free labor for our dad, who was a construction subcontractor, and he never ran out of projects. We were always building something or pouring concrete, or, we were always doing something where it was some kind of construction project around the house. We filled in a carport, and we were always surrounded by my dad's professional friends, and they were tradesmen and women, master plumbers, master electricians. So it was, it was not a frilly childhood at all, but it did give me some strategic advantage moving into this because I didn't realize I could just have a relationship with contractors so easily.
No, that makes sense. So what was your first property?
It was a 1957 single family home in Blue Mound, Texas, which is like the poor country cousin of Saginaw. So it's like a 3-1. Had a carport, large backyard, already kind of an obsolete footprint, but that's how we got our start. And we were in a real estate investment club, and I had a coach who had a realtor she worked with, and she was always working with investors. And so she found this property. The granddaughter of the original owner was selling it for her, giving the grandma a hand up. And I bought this modest home, this modest property, which was the last one we sold in 2019. From this owner. Yeah.
So you had it as a rental and you
Yeah.
hold it until 2019.
The entire time. And it was a solid little workforce rental from 2005 when we picked it up all the way to 2019 until we sold it and sold it to another investor. We had a realtor that we worked with that we sold our investment properties through, and he gave us a good discount rate for selling because he had shared the buy and the sell commission, and that's how we exited those single family properties in a very strategic way. And we were able to do a stagger sell so we could minimize our tax impact.
Okay, I have a few follow-up questions after that. First of all, How many property did you have before you exited in 2019? How much your portfolio grew?
We were probably up to about 11, and I was
11.
self-managing.
And all
Yeah,
single family houses.
they were all single family. I'd originally had a realtor who was property managing for me, but I got frustrated with this man, and I felt like I could do a better job. Well, what happens when you think you can do a better job? You get the job. And I kept that job all the way to 2019. So it was kind of a blessing and a curse, but I really could fill properties quicker than him. I wasn't really joking.
Yeah. And
Screen the
so
tenants, do all of it, do the credit check. I'd been a former financial analyst and senior business analyst, and I had systems to really do these things.
love it. Do you mind if I asking how old were you when you started your real estate journey?
I was 40. Yeah,
It's 40.
I wasn't a super young person, so you can really do this at a different age. You don't have to be in your 20s. I mean, it's great you have a really long runway, but I don't know. I think I'm going to, because I'm just so busy with so many things that intrigue me and fascinate me and I make money at. I think I'm really going to live to be a really old person, and so I think I'm really going to have a long runway, Alex.
Love it, love it. And can you share some early lessons from your single family home investing that shaped how you operate today?
Yes. Well, one of the things that really shaped how I operate today is I got an accountant and I got a real estate attorney, Texas board certified, and I always reviewed my leases with her like every day. I mean, not every day, but every year. So yearly. And one of the things that Dean and I committed ourselves to in the space is we were going to have a safe and secure property for our tenants to live in. We were not going to be slumlords. We did not want that at all. Some people, they're, especially down in Texas, they're good, having their guns on their person, and you know, they don't even have to have concealed weapon now. They can make sure that they legally can carry their firearms, and they can do that, and they'll go down there and work in coma. In fact, one of my early coaches way back from 2006, he did that. And he was okay with that. I mean, he's like this really big, tall guy. Nobody was messing with him. He had his firearms on his person because back then he had his concealed handgun his license. But some people, that is really not a concern for them. But for me, it was a concern. That's not how I wanted to operate. And everybody has a different business plan.
100%. And yeah, everyone's journey is so unique. That's why I like to even to share and ask everyone's opinion. And for me too, when I started my journey, I disliked when I bought properties and there was such a disrepair, such a bad condition. Literally, one of the property had like 7 layers of ceiling. When every time new landlord come and they put new ceiling patch on top, like no,
That's the sign of a slumlord. That's the sign of
that's a sign. Like no, I'm not gonna do this
really.
anymore.
That's substandard.
Yeah, but you live and you learn and you understand and you put in your standards high, and then tenants appreciate it too, right? Because when you clean up and you always provide good housing for people, you have appreciative tenants who take care of your property as well.
Well, I will tell you too, I really had my relationship with my team that I built over a 5-year period. My handymen, they were like really godsends because they can keep your expenses on the lower side, but they still have some definite ability to them, and they work with their hands all the time. Master electricians, master plumbers, and my general contractor as well. When we had to go in and do a full rehab when we were exiting a property, one of the things that the foreman would not allow me towards the end of this time from 2005 to 2019, he would not allow me to have the painter's tape. Because if I had the tape and I felt like it really needed a repaint job, by the time you were finished, the wall was almost blue. And so Harvey's like, you are never allowed to do that anymore. So that was one of our humorous stories. So Harvey was
So,
very serious. I was never allowed to. The painter's tape roll did not leave his hand and come to mine.
so I think the
After
biggest
those projects, yeah.
The biggest lesson here from your single family home times is build your team, right?
Okay.
And also you got your hands-on experience as a property manager.
Yes, I did.
And I think that's shaped really understanding deeply of how tenants behave and how landlords should behave as tenants, how property manager can respond and put those systems together in place to make sure you have your wall between them and yourself and just to you're doing everything right.
But also, you do build a relationship with your tenants. And I only had 2 evictions in that entire time. 2 evictions. Now, I had a couple of tenants that had some struggle about them. And I had a couple of tenants who did come, they become financially unwound. And once you get momentum and loss of income in that place, it's very, very hard to recoup and regain that. It's really hard. And it's very hard if you're a very careful and thoughtful landlord, an independent landlord, to see that person unravel. But I will also tell you that I had a situation with a tenant, surprisingly, in that 1957 house that had this terrible breakup with his girlfriend. And he was like an HVAC guy, just highly skilled guy. And I told him, hey, pull yourself together, man. You don't want this on your record. And I just talked to him about the consequences of that. He had the money. He had the money. I waited and I let him go and get a money order from the Ace Hardware store. And he caught up on his rent. He was never behind after that. He ended up having a wonderful girlfriend who later he married. He bought this property in Azle. So, he just turned all of that around, but he needed somebody in that moment, I think, to give him a little tough love and say, this is not where you want to be heading. And that's the only time I really ever had to do that. And then I did it. And the humorous part was that my daughter was with me at the time, and she was an elementary age kid. And we thought we were going to have to evict. I was going to have to put the notice on the door. I was there ready to put the notice on the door. He came out. We had our conversation. I came home with the money order. I came home with the rent and the late payment as well. And the first thing that our daughters told my spouse is, well, he said, how did the eviction go? He was kind of worried about it. And she said, oh, mama's come home with money. And so that's just like a priceless, lesson too. It's like mama's come home with money.
Yep. I mean,
So we just really turned that little challenge into a victory in that moment. And it was because I took the time to have that one-on-one communication with that tenant.
no, yeah, I understand. And everyone's it's important. Everyone has their own unique situation, and I think for the landlords it's a good lesson, especially for new landlords, is always stay human and try to understand what's going on. Really, even nowadays, me working with my property manager, we look in every single situation and we understand where is it coming from. We're trying to implement systems, but when people were with you for a couple of years and they just got a rough patch, you need to look into it deeper and understand what's really going on, rather than.
Yeah, with him, Alex, it wasn't necessarily the finances. The finances are more of a challenge. It was an emotional slump. Somebody just kind of had to pick him up in the moment and give him a little tough love. And that made all the difference. And he never stumbled again. And he ended up going to a more prosperous place. He ended up getting a better job. He ended up getting on-call money for travel time, which is kind of unheard of with HVAC people. And he ended up buying a larger, great property in Azle, Texas. And his dad ended up, the tenant after him. So his dad was an HVAC guy. So we literally had to sell this property, and the dad had to move into an apartment because it was time to exit the property. We had it since 2005 to 2019. It was time to exit.
So now, great story, and especially have families. I mean, they trust you so much and they love being in your property. Like they moved in his dad instead of him. It's great. I mean, I think it's a success story for sure. especially on the tenant and the landlord relationship, property manager kind of communications. This is really good to hear. Now, you mentioned something that you were creative while exiting to offset your capital tax gains. Can you unwind it a little bit? What strategy did you use and how did you really go about it?
Well, what we ended up doing is in 2015, I found my multifamily mentor. And so we ended up investing more into multifamily as we were exiting single family properties. Because of course, with single family properties, you have the the gain or the loss, but you have to carry it over. And it's just the scale is so much more substantial in multifamily. And then when you ended up having bonus depreciation, and now bonus depreciation is coming back, that's really huge. And when Dan and I committed to the single family uh, real estate investing, I became the real estate professional designee. And so we've been able to leverage that. And so we used the single family sale portfolio to be seed money. Dan also had a significant inheritance from his dad, and we just really kind of pumped that into multifamily real estate. And we were able to build up our portfolio. Now, we didn't just build it up all in 1 year. We built that up over a 10-year period. So it was a decade. And part of that was a strategy, a business plan that we had, because we didn't want to just buy all in 1 year. We wanted to really check out and see what the advantages were year to year as far as what was our tax position. And we closely track that with our CPAs who provide real estate guidance. So very specific. Our team has grown. We've got a bookkeeper and we have two CPAs.
I
And
think
so
it
we're managing all of that. So you've got the K1s, you've got you've got the bookkeeper that's tracking all the expenses and all the income. And so, you're really more systematized in that. And Dan loves that because he loves to implement systems and protocols because he's in aerospace and he really gets off into that. And so he's kind of taken that over from me. It was a much more manual process and he enjoyed automating it because he's just kind of wired like that. And so it's like its own little machine that's operating.
You just said something very important, and I think our listeners, especially whoever wanted to start in real estate, like yourself in the beginning, it's important about building a team, but not only just, hey, I need CPA, attorney, and that and that and that, but people who actually specialize in real estate investing. And this was something you just dropped, not intentionally, but I think it's people need to emphasize it. Find a CPA who's doing real estate on his own and he has real estate expertise in real estate investing specifically, because not a lot of them the same. There's a ton of strategies going on how to minimize your tax liability and maximize your revenue, right?
Well, I will say, Alex, the third time's a charm because I had to go through 3 different CPA firms to arrive at this one. And I actually met some CPAs from the CPA firm in 2019 at my multifamily mastermind mentors mastermind. So, and at that time, Tom Wheelwright, who is Robert Kiyosaki's CPA, was tied to them. He sold that franchise and he's building like his own second franchise. But these people, they know real estate. And my other two, they were not deep in the weeds in real estate, and it makes all the difference. It truly does.
I heard about this concept first in Bigger Pockets podcast when I started my journey, and I was lucky enough to follow that advice from the beginning. And I specifically look for CPA with this stuff. And my first CPA, I still have him today, and I'm very happy about it. But back to your story, and I think it's very exciting. But I want to ask you a question. You just casually mentioned you started investing in multifamily. At what role did you start investing in multifamily after you rotated funds? And how did you rotate funds? Was it then sort of on exchange to minimize your expert, or you just sold and in the moved funds into multifamily passive investing or active?
Well, we timed our sales and we timed our investments. So if we needed something in a calendar year, if we knew there was an exit coming, because a lot of times, the general partners will let you know. Then you're searching for another property to invest in, but not just for the tax strategy alone. The property had to stand on its own merits regarding the business plan. So we never just said, oh, we only are doing this because of a tax advantage. Because I have seen investors who have done that. And I've even seen one of my mentors do that. And it's not the, how do I want to say this? It's not the optimal business plan, because honestly, Alex, you want both. You want that strong performance, you want the strong cash flow, you want that multiplier on the exit, and you want the tax advantage, the tax sheltering. You're like a kid in a candy store. You want all of the candy that you can.
No, 100%. So tell us about your first multifamily properties that you started investing.
Okay, well, my first ones were in Oklahoma City. And that's not a market I would really go to in the future. And I learned a very important lesson. The general partner's really solid. They were really solid. And he's had a lot of success with the other partner that he brought in on his business. And we keep in touch. I see him at Raise Fast because I'm also in Raise Masters. So Hunter Thompson and Brad Sumrok are both my mentors. I have two mastermind mentors. But yeah, it's not a market. And so what I would do is I would take more care with a general partner team that is new to a market. Because guess what? It is an unproven, untested market at that. So you'll live and you'll learn. At that point in time, I was wanting to get in and have an investment. I was an eager investor, and I did need some tax sheltering. So that's another lesson. Don't be overeager. Be a kind of a steady ship on the ocean.
So what happened with the deal? You kind of saying that it wasn't a good deal. You don't be eager, don't be excited.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, on the back end, on the exit, it ended up proving successful. However, that general partner, and he was a solo general partner, and in aerospace, he's an engineer. He made it work for all the investors, but we kind of had to go through that journey together. It wasn't like 9 months, everything clipping along great. It was almost like that children's book, a series of, misfortunate events. It's just like something was always going on with this property. And it was like the tenant base wasn't what he had really expected. And they were a tenant base that were struggled a little more. The demographic of that tenant base struggled a little bit more. And it was a property, well, it was a good size, good build, all of that. It was kind of in a more of a area that bordered on an industrial area in Oklahoma City. Plus, you had the fact that oil and gas, was kind of the price point was going down per barrel, and that always affects. And he didn't realize that at first, but in Oklahoma City, they're still very energy dependent as far as the marketplace and how it affects the school districts. You don't realize that until you're in the middle of it, and it affects the economy. It is still such a driver in the economy in Oklahoma City, and so you don't have diverse employers and as diverse drivers as far as macro and microeconomics.
Yeah, I've seen it before, and sometimes cities rely heavily on military or on
And they have
specific kind of sector or chips.
too. Yeah.
And then something happened with new laws come on, they cut on spending or something else, and just that city is struggling all of a sudden. Yep, this is interesting, and this is like very unorthodox. Very, you have to look really deeper into market research analysis. They have to have someone local who knows those dynamics, right? Who lives through those cycles and who've seen something like this before.
But I will say he saw it to the end, and I respect him to this day. And I would invest with him in the future, because I will say he's really shored himself up more as a result of that experience. And he and his partner are doing just so many great things in Houston, Texas. I mean, he incorporated so many lessons learned in that. And I'm proud of how much he has grown over the 10 years I have known him.
Do you mind to share the name of the operator?
Yeah, it's Dustin Miles. It's
Dustin Miles.
Yeah, I think it's Momentum Multifamily. He and
Love it.
Paddington. Yeah, they've done hit it out of the park in Houston, Texas. So they're definitely a little powerhouse down there in Houston, Texas. They've scoped out their market. They're operating so just really strongly as a partner team. And I love to see the guys when I go to Race Fest, because it's like a little mini reunion, because I was there, I was his investor, like in the early years. And that's how he introduces me. He said, Sharon stuck with me in the early years. So that's kind of how our little introduction goes. Yeah.
Love it. And it's important to see operators who gone through rough times and actually come in as a winners, and at the end of the day, they put in investor first, and maybe diluting themselves and maybe making less money than was projected, but they want to put first investor and make sure that investors is in a good place in the exit.
So it's also important as a limited partner to give some of these investors grace to work out some of the challenges. You don't have to just roll over and be passive, because I'm a very much an activist investor, because I have a lot of experience under my belt, and I don't mind communicating difficult information very succinctly, which I have done with a couple of investors like over the summer. I just really had to talk. We had to talk about really challenging things and what's the solution is going to be, and how are you going to change this situation? But giving them some grace so that they can use their cross skills and use their brains, because everybody has those cross skills that they bring into their business. And so I let Dustin bring in all those engineering cross skills he had. And he's changed the course. He turned that ship around.
Love it. Now, you mentioned something important here about Race Phase Masters with Brad Sumrok. Can you touch a little bit on mentorship and the role of mentorship in your multifamily journey?
Sure. Well, I will say I'm coming off a little bit of FOMO right now, because I wasn't able to make the Tulum, millionaire multifamily mastermind trip, which was I've heard was really awesome. But I've been with Brad a decade, and that's where I learned some nuts and bolts. And I talk about nuts and bolts, even in some posts, because I do posts on 3 platforms, try to post daily. And I have a very definite system where I'm posting and what I'm covering. And part of that is also thanks to Hunter Thompson, who is my second mentor. So I added a second mentor. In February, I will have been with Hunter 2 years. And part of that was for capital raising. So I wanted some really specialized skill set and mastery in capital raising. And I get a whole lot of technology type of advice and a lot of things to implement. And part of the reason that I do have this ebook that we'll talk about a little later is because of Hunter Thompson. Hunter's all about doing the work. He'll say, well, Sharon, that's great. And he'll listen to you, but then he's going to come around and reinforce his point and doing the work. He never shirks from that, because he does the work. He and Tyler Lyons do the work in there at ASIM Capital too.
Love it. So tell me this, you invested in over 18 passive syndications, maybe even more throughout the years. How do you pick your markets? How do you pick sponsors? That's why you went to those networking events. Do you meet them on networking events, or you network on meetups? What is your strategy?
Most of them have been in masterminds with me, or they have been in personal mentoring. So they have been in one of the 2 communities that I've been a member in. And I also have some I'm a private lender also. And I'm a private lender with a person who was in Race Masters with me too. So, you're always, people present you with opportunities. And I always remind general partners, it's a matter of timing. It's not always a matter of your choice, because you might not have all the funds free at that moment when they have a really solid deal that they are pitching you. But I look at the team, I look at the property, I look at the market, and I do a little deep dive on the market, and I ask people a lot of questions. How is the market performing? And I really try, it's because I really do think we're entering a period of stagflation. And I'll be honest, I was a teenager when we went through stagflation before, and it really, really does bite. And we could be moving into a recession. And so I'm not going to be going in secondary and tertiary markets. I'm going to be really headed for main markets. And another tool that I use, that I encourage your listeners, your audience to use, is, you can actually go on LinkedIn, and there are economists that do break a lot of things down. Mark Zandi breaks things down by market. Certainly Jay Parsons breaks things down by market. And you can follow those guys. And since I am a former analyst, I'm like a nut about my little bar graphs and my charts and my scattergrams, and I am like a data hound. So I like to do my research, and I like to follow the data, and I like to follow the money. I do also like to follow reputations. So what reputations have people built over that time? Like with one of my general partners that we've invested with, I still am in their huddles, and that's Reap Equity, and they're vertically integrated. They're out of San Antonio, Texas. It's the Garza family, Arlene Garza, Jacob Garza Sr., and their two children are in the business with them too, and it's vertically integrated. They're in San Antonio market, some in the Austin market, and some in the Houston market, and they're really solid operators as well.
So what are you doing today? You still focus on limited partnership deals, being a limited partner, or you focusing now to be an active syndicator, general sponsor in the deal?
I am looking to be an active syndicator, and I've been invited to be on general partner teams. I just wanted them to be in my buy box, and that's another thing I wanted to talk to, those who are general partners. Try to stay with your buy box. I want my experience has been those smaller properties, like around 100 units, maybe 120, have just had some outstanding multipliers for me on the exit. They're just like little powerhouse, little modest properties. And I would like to really have that. And I could have had that with a property in Hurst, Texas, but it was just a little older year built. The team was solid. They were in a mentoring group with me. I'd had a long-term relationship with part of them, but they had flat roofs. They were a 60s build. They had boilers and chillers, and I didn't want to have a reserve fund for boilers and chillers. And I know from my own experience, there's one property that I do have that's in Brighton, Colorado, and they have reserve fund for the boilers and chillers, and it's because of the year built. If you're going to have a 19 in the 60s build, if you're not going to have a build before 1976 or 78, you're going to have boilers and chillers.
And for our listeners, just to expand, reserve fund meaning, guys, this is like vintage properties, older builds. It means it's a lot of deferred capital expenditures like capex. This some sense that will at some point will break, regardless because of its age, right?
And if you're going in with your capex, a lot of times with more of those vintage properties, they will have a separate reserve fund for those kinds of things, separate from even your capex. Yeah,
100%, and it's going to be a requirement even from the lender.
It is a requirement from the lender. It really is. But what they had to turn around too, and they're creatively funding some other expenses in the property. They've also found that they had to do some updated electrical boxes too. So, but that came from the insurance agent. So that came from the insurance company. So you got to watch out for those electrical boxes too, my friends.
100%.
The vintage properties.
So what is your buy box nowadays, Sharon?
Well, I would like for it to be um, like 75 to 130 as far as units. I want the pitch roofs. I don't want the boilers and the chillers. And I would like for it to be a 70s build. So I would like for it to be like 1976 or even 1978, the year I graduated from high school. So sweet. But anyway, I was one of those 70s kids. Yeah, that'd be even better because then you don't have the lead paint. And that was something else I learned from single family, having my little 1957 property. You always had to have the lead paint um, on the contract. You always had to have a notification that, yeah, lead paint notification.
Well, the property buy box is just one part of the piece, right? One piece of the whole thing of your buy box. What about your market? And do you have specific markets that you're looking for?
Well, I would like to be in Dallas Fort Worth just because we are based in Dallas Fort Worth.
Okay.
Dan works over in Fort Worth, Hurst area. He's with Bell Helicopter. He's in aerospace. Our company and our home is based in Denton, Texas. So we're right in between Dallas and Fort Worth, right in.
Love it.
And so we know Dallas Fort Worth market. We live here. Dan and I have each worked for W-2 employers in this market. We've owned single family property in this market. We've also had multifamily property that we've been invested in as limited partners in this market.
And I bet you have a wide network of real estate investors in that particular submarket.
We do. We do. There's people who are
I,
always trying to get in my market, in my network and talk to me about this or that. And, some of them have to kind of wait for me to have a conversation because in my inbox, I give myself permission to be the driver and not other people be the driver. And once you get to the level where you're an accredited investor, everybody wants a piece of your money and everybody wants a piece of your time, but you are the driver of all of it.
100%. I think it's an important mentality switch from, you remember your first deals, you were a little FOMO, you wanted to get into the deal as soon as possible. Now you're stepping back, you experience and like, yeah, guys, you know what's the golden rule? Who has the gold making rules?
I'm very sought after. I'm not a family office. I'm not a family office, so I don't have as many rules as family offices do. But I'm an accredited investor, and I know that is a prized investor to have as an investor on any deal. And it's a prized investor to have as a general partner as well.
Yep, no, 100%. It's very important, and you out there, people know you, and I think it's important to see you around also on the podcast. And this was my another question. You are known as podcast queen. So how did it start, and what's the impact been for you to be on so many podcasts throughout your life?
Well, it started out. I started with a signature talk, and it started with a signature talk in Brad's community, Brad Sumrok. I went up to Milwaukee. Dan and I helped construct a signature talk. We went through the whole slideshow. And then what I discovered is one of the partners that was working with Pat Quinn, Pete Vargas, had a stage broker business company. And for a couple of years, I worked with a stage broker. And Michelle Chris was a very talented stage broker within that organization. But what we soon discovered is that I could, just like some of the skills that I used, getting into multifamily deals and working with tenants, I could give my pitch really strongly, stronger than a stage broker could give my pitch. And so I started pitching myself, and I could get on more podcasts than my stage broker could get me on. We decided, it really did happen. And we decided that was the good and pleasant place to part because she felt solid that she'd worked with me for 2 years. And I had enough confidence and skills not only to be on podcasts, but to pitch being on podcasts. And then I had podcasters who gave me even other tips and other communities that I could join where I could find other podcast guests. And so I pitch myself on that. So in fact, before I was on your podcast, I had a podcaster who was approaching me, and he wanted to know, did I fit within the theme of what he wanted of his podcast? And so he asked me, what obstacles I'd overcome. And so I had like a little list of all these obstacles, in my life I've overcome. And I'm like, well, do you need some more obstacles? I mean, it wasn't being flippant. It's just like, do you need some more material to work with, to kind of convince you that I can land a solid podcast for you with the themes that you're wanting to tackle. And it's always about the audience and the podcaster. It's not about you as the guest. It's about the audience and the podcaster. And once you understand that, very few people refuse me, because I won't seek them out if I don't think there's alignment. I just won't.
Now, here's a big question, right? For people who have some experience in real estate, right? They've done some work, they have some to share, but they always, and me myself in the past, I always felt like I'm not enough, right? It's not enough information, not enough knowledge you can pass to people, and what it can give me as a benefit to be on podcasts. So my question is to you: how did it help you on your journey being a guest on a podcast?
Well, because everybody's got something new they want to learn, so it does allow you. It's almost like journaling. Like, a lot of people like to journal. It's almost like I'm doing a brain dump, but I feel like it's like a public service, because everybody gets to know some of this knowledge. It equalizes a playing field. It's very collaborative, which, as a woman, that's my superpower. That's how I like to operate. I like to be collaborative first, competitive second, because I am competitive too, or I wouldn't be in this space. But it allows people to kind of be in on a secret. You're not hoarding information, because there's such a fluid environment. There's always more you have to learn every day, because things change all the time. And so you have to learn other skills, learn more about other economics, learn about properties themselves. It's very fluid. You always are having to learn things. And so it's very, very dynamic. And I think podcasts have given me that ability to do that and talk very, sometimes extemporaneously, about what I'm observing, not only my experience, but what I am observing, because I'm very observational, but I'm bringing my analyst skills into the table on that one. So I'm able to leverage a lot of skills that I've developed over, the time period where I'm a 60-plus-year-old woman. I mean, it's been a long career path, sharpening a lot of skill sets.
I think Maud is that, right? And he just mentioned it in different words, but it's establishing you as a thought leadership in this space. You've been on a guest, you've been interviewed for this topic, so people know you and recognize you as a real estate investor, professional real estate investor who's experienced. And also, what it helps, one thing is to live through the experience, right? But if we don't talk about it, it's getting on the back end and you start thinking, was it really happening to me? But when you talk about it and we're talking over and over and you formulate the thoughts in your head to structure it in the right way, that helps you to find your voice better and to inspire others people. Because tell me honestly, on your first podcast as a guest and right now, it's a whole different kind of conversation, right? We improve every day, and this is another skill set. Being is a host or a podcast guest, it's another whole skill rather than talking in person.
It is, and I will tell you, it also gives you the opportunity to shine. But I've been on a tough podcast, and it was Bigger Pockets. So Bigger Pocket. And I'm like, oh man, this is like a high level podcast. And Ash Patel was asking me these tough questions. And but I asked him a question back in the middle of the podcast. I did that. Let's give this question back. And I'm like, Ash, what do you think I could do differently? Do you have some tips for me in talking to brokers? Because he point blank asked me, why have you taken so long to get into a general partner role? Boom. Just boom. He just laid it on me.
Brought a hammer.
It hammered me in the moment. I felt like a hammer. But it became a boomerang. And then he gave me like some really great advice that I have used moving forward. So thank you, Ash Patel, for that, because I am utilizing some things that he brought to my attention in that podcast. But it was only through asking a question. And he was asking the questions, and I gave myself permission to ask a question to this very, very experienced podcaster and very experienced a real estate investor in multifamily space. So I give myself permission. But when you're on a lot of podcasts, Alex, you give yourself permission to lead an extraordinary life and release more imposter syndrome, because we let imposter syndrome get in the way of so much. But when you start talking about it, it lives rent free in your head sometimes, and you don't want to let it live rent free in your head. And but you reflect on your life, and podcasts and even a signature doc gives you the opportunity to pause and reflect on what an extraordinary life you have led. And I will also say, being a businesswoman, coming from an entrepreneurial family and a third generation Texan, I do allow myself the gift of living an extraordinary life, because, Texans, we kind of like to brag, and everything's bigger and better. And, everything that we've done is just, so much, just larger than life. But I have had relatives who have lived lives that are larger than life. I think some of my family members have also given me the opportunity to live a life that is larger than some families do allow. And I think it's because of my Texas heritage too. I really do. We just think, it's got to be bigger, it's got to be better if it comes from Texas, and that includes.
Why not?
Yeah.
But listen, you've been on a podcast as a guest so many years. Now you're inspired to build your own podcast, and I got a little information here that you are about to launch it. Can you tell us about it? What is the goal for your podcast? What's the vision for it?
Well, first I wrote that ebook. So the ebook is Spilling the Tea, Multifamily Investing Made Easy. So I wrote the ebook first because, honestly, Hunter Thompson and Catherine Bell were kind of on my case to get the job done. So get the job done, girl. And I felt like it's a good segue to do that. But why not expand it? Spilling the tea, I wanted to update my language because I have a daughter who's 29, and you're not spilling the beans anymore. You got to update your language. She teaches me a lot of stuff. Your children do teach you a lot of stuff, because sometimes they think they know everything, but they do know a lot of good stuff, and you should incorporate that in your life. And that was in my podcast title. So, Spilling the Tea, Real Estate, Business, and Legacy. And that's what I want to cover, because that's like a trifecta. And I think that I think we can have more than enough meat on the bone to deliver to people. And I know people who have made a lot of outstanding moves in each one of those little quadrants.
Very powerful. And I think you have such a good path here, from being a guest, then writing your ebook, to put your thoughts in a paper, and now you're like, okay, let's expand this topic, let's have a podcast, and let's talk about it more and more every day, and inspire others on this journey.
Well, and I was also asked to author a chapter of a multi-author book too, and that book is The Networking Effect. And there are a lot of people in that space that are creating legacy too. And so I've got some people who, we can do a podcast swap and do some other stuff. They're just, they're just creating some incredible legacy, including on that particular book, an artist who has works that are in the Louvre. I was in this room with this artist, this woman who literally has artwork in the Louvre in Paris. Yeah. You could be in those rooms.
100%. Sharon, so what's your long-term vision for Riddle family in real estate?
Okay, well, with our legacy, I would like our daughter to be able to have multiple streams of income. She was really more on the contracting side regarding government work in Washington, D.C. Part of the Doge fallout that's hit the Beltway, as they like to call it. So that's, the Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland quadrant. And so she has seen us really work in the entrepreneur space. And so she's launching her own strategic business coach business. And she has already launched a podcast. So she's launched a podcast before me. I'm kind of like, oh, you did it before Mama. I don't know. You got that down first. But she had a lot of skills to do that. And her fiance had podcasted for a couple of years. He is a telecom attorney, but also a gamer. And so they have a lot of equipment. They just added to a lot of other equipment. And she's really getting off into the editing side of things. So she's found that she has some real entrepreneurial tendencies, which I'd always seen in her, but they're really kind of moving more to the forefront as well. But she can, like so many people, she can also be a real estate investor. You can have a W-2 job. You can be a business owner in another industry, and still, be an investor. You can do those things because I see very successful people doing those things all the time.
100%. And so generally for you planning to keep investing as a GP, what do you have some goal for your door count or income count or portfolio valuation in general? Do you have some high inspirational goals, or you just like the process and you don't have anything like this?
Well, I am already a multimillionaire, but you always have to have the smart goals, Alex. You got to put them down. So I will have to quantify that more per property. I've got the buy box, but Dan and I together will need to spend a little more time kind of doing a reverse engineer on what the income stream, because the income stream will be asset managing as well as the general partner stream. So it'll be, instead of a one stream, it'll be a two stream. And that's really, some of the difference on the front end regarding the general partner. The investment, of course, is larger. The risk is larger. You're on the note. I've been a KP before. I've been on a note before with a successful exit too. And it was a 100 unit property too. So we'll just have to systematize those more as we move forward. We'll just have to say, okay, well, what do we want all of this to be? And I'm sure we'll bounce a lot of these things off of Brad Sumrok and off of Hunter Thompson as we systematize it even more, because we still got Dan W-2 income, and we've got the income. I do have some distributions. I have a little 100 unit property in Houston, Texas that has delivered the 16th distribution, even in these times, even in some challenging times. And it's a little 100 unit too. That's what I'm just saying. They just keep on giving a gift, and workforce housing, so C+ property. But we have to back into it, and we can really do it between Dan and I. We can back into those numbers. I've been an analyst before. He has a math minor and all these engineering, background. And so we have to back into our numbers more,
just to process and actually have this vision, sit down and think about it more deeply, and actually have
we have to have our business meeting to just reverse engineer.
It's important.
And back down into it, and say, this is what the stream is going to be, and this is what it's going to look like. But with some of the general partners who have asked us to be on the team, one of the things that we can do in Dallas, Texas, when we have another mastermind with some of these folks, we can talk about what's realistic from some people who are really doing that work. So I think that we can quantify those numbers even better with the help of some of our fellow mentees.
Mastermind and mentees. Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Sharon, I'll have last few questions for you. I know we're at the time. So first thing that comes to your mind, please let me know one book or resource that shaped your real estate mindset or investment approach.
Oh, I love these lightning round. Okay. This, I'd say Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And what I love about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, not only the topic, but I love the quadrant, the cash flow quadrant.
Yep.
Because what that really cemented in my brain is how different my entrepreneurial family was from my neighbor across the street. She was in the investor quadrant. They were in the self-employed quadrant. She was maximizing her tax shelter the entire time. And she was the only woman in the lot. So I really, she was an early role model for me, like in my early childhood.
Everyone usually makes reach there with that, and then first book as they read, and second is Quadrant. For me, I started with Quadrant as the first book, and it's like, wow, it just so much resonated, and really when you see these people around you in different paths, it just all fits the
I mean, it
box.
just gels. It comes together. And Dan really loved Cashflow quadrant even more than Rich Dad because it's very
Yep,
topical.
me too.
So he loved it even more.
Okay, second question. Most important trait a real estate leader should develop?
Integrity.
Yep, 100%. One thing you wish you knew early in your real estate journey?
I wish I had really mastered capital raising earlier. You can never master it soon enough. That's just what I think.
Yep.
And that's why
It's chicken or egg problem. People focus on different things.
Yeah, you can never get really good at it soon enough.
100%. Well, I have one last question for you, Sharon. If someone wanted to reach out to you to talk deals and or to ask advice in what we talked today, how people can reach you?
Well, I do have my website. It's www.excalibur, EXCALIBRE, Texas.com. And I am on 3 different social media platforms, people. So, you have a lot of opportunity. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. But the fail-safe, of course, is always the website.
100%. And we connected originally on LinkedIn, so it's a good place to catch you
Yeah,
because I know you're super active there. Sharon, thank you so much. This is all from me for today. It's been such a powerful and insightful conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey from very beginning. And I know it wasn't easy, but you made it to where you are today. And you have a very, very bright path in front of you. You have your path of progress lined up, and now you have exactly what you know and what you want to do. And I love it. And thank you for inspiring others along the way.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, for taking the time to be with me today and having so many thoughtful questions and allowing me to also go a little freeform so we could just really let all that information flow out to people.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And to everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a review for us. It helps to get a better visibility. And as always, keep moving forward.